I need you to hate so I can use you for your energy.
This is Real Sales Talk. Real sales advice from real sales practitioners. Giving you tips on how to dominate your sales quota are your co-hosts, Sean Mitchell and Phil Keene. What's going on, everyone? Real Sales Talk family, it's Sean, and we are live with another episode of Real Sales Talk, and boy, do I have a great one for you. I have one of my real estate agent friends that I met when I worked back at BombBomb back in, it was probably 2011 or so. Gary Gold, a luxury agent out of the Beverly Hills area, right, Gary?
Yes.
Beverly Hills area. And today we are going to talk about lead follow-up and how to professionally follow up with people without being incredibly annoying. So, Gary, I know that recently, I think within the last year and a half, you had a closing that generated a lot of press. And
Yes.
do you want to talk about the
Sure.
the one you co-brokered? And I don't want to spoil it, so I want to let you tell your story because I think this is a pretty noteworthy one.
You know, if you're selling real estate, this is like winning the NBA Finals. I closed escrow and I listed and closed escrow on the Playboy Mansion, which was the largest sale last year in the United States, 2016. And it was the largest sale ever in Los Angeles. The first house to break 100 million.
That's awesome.
As an interesting side note, when it originally sold to Hef in 71, it was the first house to break 1 million.
Wow.
And now it sold for 100 million 40 plus years ago, but
Insane.
that's still a good return.
And just because I'm curious and because I'm in real estate, I know with luxury homes, the point in which it's on the market to which it's sales is sometimes a little bit longer than lower price points. So how long was that from when it went on the market to when someone purchased?
Well, these mega houses, the ones that are 50, 60, 70 plus, can take years to sell. That's typically what happens. In this case, that was not what happened. We had most people know this. It was just a big news story, but Hef gets to stay there for the rest of his life. So there's kind of a leaseback situation,
Wow,
which does create a problem for, I would think, most buyers. So that was our additional challenge. But immediately upon listing it, literally when we published it, within maybe 48 hours, we had the buyer. Now it took months and months and months to negotiate, but I put it on the market in like February, and we had it closed in July. But we had the buyer immediately. It just took a long time to, come to a deal and negotiate it.
I mean, so that's 6 months. That's a 6-month sales cycle from beginning to end.
Right.
Is that doesn't sound normal for that price point?
It's not normal. But you know what? This price point, there's nothing normal. This is the first house to sell over 100. There was no precedent. But let's just say the 50 plus. If you look at the others, they've historically taken years and years and years.
Yeah. Okay. So I want you to kind of give some backstory on how you got into real estate, and what I'm really curious about, Gary, is how you got into the luxury side of things, because that's going to preface what we talk about in regards to lead follow-up.
Okay. So how I got into real estate is I wanted to be, when I was like 17 years old, I wanted to be a lyricist or a comedian or something like that. Very hard to find lyricist jobs when you're 17. But that's what I wanted to do. I was a very creative person, and I had a car and I tried to paint it myself because I wanted it to be really cool, and I destroyed the car. And so I was 17 years old with no car, and my brother came and said to me, "Come work for me and I'll buy you a car." And he was about 21, and he started selling real estate when he was, he had been in it a couple of years, and he was kicking ass. And at the time, this is in the 70s, the late 70s, he's this good-looking 21-year-old guy who actually his shtick was he wore tennis shorts everywhere. He just wore tennis shorts, and he drove a Corvette in the San Fernando Valley. And everyone else in real estate was like legally dead. They were like these old housewives that just got into real estate and, you know, their husbands are staying home. And that's who the majority of the business was. And then there's this young, good looking guy, and he brought me on and he literally says, I want to do a lot of marketing. And he says, do whatever you want, because just do whatever you want. And I'm a creative person. So I took all that and we started doing what is known today as not that unusual, but the beginning of kind of like real estate agent as a branded kind of rock star out, you know, kind of over the top. I wouldn't say I invented, but I didn't know anyone who was doing it before us. And we did really, really outrageous marketing and we got a lot of attention. And at the time, no one else had done it. And we just got a lot of attention. We were selling a ton of real estate. And a few years after that, my brother ended up with a client who was doing these full floor leases all over the country in office buildings. So this guy would buy, he'd take a full floor lease for 20 years in an office building, and he'd take 2 or 3 floors and convert them into law offices where he put in a library and a receptionist. And my brother was making millions. And he just said to me, here's the residential division. I didn't even want to get into sales. I was just doing his marketing. But like 1981, I got my license and he just handed me what business we had. And so I got a good start with a lot of leads and a lot of people that he had set up and that I had known because was his assistant basically. And that's how it started. My first sale that I sold myself was in like 81. And it was, my first 2 sales were 700,000 and 800,000. And in 1981, in the San Fernando Valley, that was, one was a tennis court estate and the other one was like a real estate. So I started out selling expensive homes to get go, but that still was the San Fernando Valley. And when I turned 30, I moved to Beverly Hills, and that's when it just went to a whole nother level.
So you kind of fell into the luxury real estate by accident, it sounds like. I'm really curious to know, and this is kind of a side note here. When you talk about crazy marketing back in 1981, what exactly does that mean? Are we talking like HGTV style, high quality, follow you around and tell the story like that? Or what did that involve?
By the way, in 1981, there was no video. I don't know if the VHS was invented yet. In fact, when I started, there was only classified ads. There wasn't even print advertising. If you would advertise in the newspaper, it was an advertisement. The MLS, you went to the board and you picked it up and it was no photos. So we didn't have that. When we wanted to make a brochure, it took 6 weeks to have made and it was expensive. So I'll give you a couple examples. We put a billboard on Ventura Boulevard in Los Angeles. It was expensive, and we had this custom thing and it said, there's gold in these hills. Carter and Reagan were they were running for president against each other. And I did a series of postcards that we sent to thousands and thousands of people. And I had one where Jimmy Carter, it's my brother in a caricature on the White House lawn with Jimmy Carter. And he's saying, and I really didn't even know what this meant at the time or if it was relevant, but he said, I love the House. It's the Senate I can't stand. And then I had another one with my brother and Ronald Reagan. And my brother's in shorts and Ronald Reagan's there. And we have our for sale sign there. And Ronald Reagan is saying, you know, in like caricature, he goes, I'm looking for a 4-year lease with an option for another 4 years. So that's pretty outrageous.
Yeah.
We would drop off, before people did pumpkins or anything, we would drop off like bottles of wine or Italian cookies to 500 people. I remember I once had an open house and we forgot to get it in the MLS. My younger brother who worked for us at the time forgot to get it in the MLS. So we put up 50 real estate signs to get to an open house. Signs were big. Signs were like, that was really social media. Like the best thing you could possibly do is have signs everywhere. I remember so I'm in the San Fernando Valley and I went down to Palm Springs for the weekend and I took a sign and I put it like on the highway in the middle of the desert. So when people were driving down to Palm Springs, they saw like this sign. So I was young.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you were doing, some formal marketing, some very creative formal marketing, but you were also getting really guerrilla marketing as well.
Yeah. Because I'm by nature, I'm a comedian. And so I'd like to do things that I thought were clever. I mean,
Yeah.
and so we were just and my brother, he literally just, if I thought of it and I wanted to do it, we just did it.
Amazing.
And we worked for 100% office. We could do whatever we wanted. We ended up starting our company shortly thereafter. So we had no one telling us what to do. And we went for it and it worked really well. We didn't know we didn't call it guerrilla marketing. We just were out there promoting ourselves. And it was very specific. We wanted to do things that would get results. We had no plan beyond that.
Yeah. So I think everyone's got a good context for where you've been. Talk a little bit about what you're doing right now, as far as, I'm really curious to know what your average deal size is, because that'll set us up to talk about the clientele that you're trying to attract when you're doing the lead follow-up.
So I'm a big game hunter. My goal is to sell 20 houses a year. Within those 20 houses a year, I'm going to have a couple big ones that are going to probably represent, could represent a third or half of my commission. But I mean, I'll sell a house for $1.5 million. I just did before we got on the phone, I did a lease, it was 1 month lease, $65,000 for the month, but I do that. And I do like 20 deals a year, and I don't count the number or the dollar. I just count how much I make. So, yeah. I mean, I'll do $1 million deal. I've got an offer yesterday for, in the threes for a house. I've got $15 million houses. I have $20 million houses. I have $4 million houses. I would say most of my stuff is over $3 million. And if I would come with an average, probably, if you average it all out, probably in the $6-7 million range.
Yep. Yep. I mean, so you're consistently, it doesn't sound like you're doing anything less than $1 million.
Well, first of all, there really isn't anything less than $1 million.
Good point. Yep.
Yeah. But yeah. And when I go caravan, I start at the top and go my way down, but I'm not really looking at houses less than 4 or 5 million just when I go caravan.
Yeah. Okay. So lead follow-up. This is one that I was really, really interested in, because I think your clientele is a little bit different, but I think that anyone who's selling something, anything, can glean something from what I would call professional follow-up, not like your rookie sales follow-up, like, calling every day, 4 times a day, trying to put high pressure on people. So when you get a referral or a lead comes in from somewhere, what does that follow-up look like? Talk us through that.
Well, first of all, I think why I'm passionate about this is where all the money is in converting leads that you have into sales. It's really easy today to get leads, and you put something in escrow, you're most likely going to get it closed. Not that those don't have their own set of disciplines and they're important, but where you really if you get better at closing escrows, it's not going to help you much if you don't get a lot of escrows. And getting leads are also worthless if you can't convert them. So this is really the most important thing. So just to start at the top, often when I say getting leads are easy, I'm sure there's people listening and saying, well, maybe that's easy for you to say. I'm finding it a struggle. Yeah. So the biggest problem, getting leads is easy. Recognizing them takes some conditioning. People don't necessarily even recognize what a lead is. I'll give you an example. I was one of the early adopters to Zillow, and I remember one of my competitors called me up, and she had a piece of a similar zip code I have. And she goes, I'm thinking of getting rid of it. She goes, I just get the crappiest leads. She goes, and she's used, for example, she goes, the other day, a guy calls me up about a property, and, I call, and he goes, the house wasn't even for sale. And it was like worthless. And I said to her, I go, that's like the best lead in the world.
Yeah.
This is a person, and in Zillow at the time, if something wasn't for sale, it might have been for sale, and now it's in escrow. It didn't show that it was an escrow back then. It just came off the market. Because one of my best leads, one of my best clients, I'm doing my 4th deal with him. He emailed me on a property that wasn't for sale. And I said to him, I go, Steve, this house isn't for sale. I go, in fact, every house is on Zillow. Check out your own address. And this is at 11 o'clock at night. What are you looking for? And we started this 11 o'clock at night conversation. This guy's, by the way, really, really famous entertainer, one of the most successful entertainers in the world. Met him on Zillow in the middle of the night. So typical people would have, this really successful agent would have gotten that lead and thought it wasn't a lead. So you've got to recognize where those opportunities are. The first and the most important thing above that is, I call it to myself, I like to do it in very visual ways. Inputting a lead doesn't sound too interesting. So the first thing I like to do is lock and load. Get the information on that lead in a place where they all are, whether it's a spreadsheet, top producer, some type of whatever, CRM, address book. You have to have a place where you can gather their name, their phone number, their email, their address. And also I like to do some research on that person. In my particular market, someone calls me looking for a $5, $6, $7 million home. I'm going to be able to find something on them, or they're most likely not real. I'm very good at this point, I think we all are good at doing a Google search and finding out about someone. And then asking, really, the next step is really, just to get a feel for what they're looking for. I don't consider like the only lead, some people think a lead is when someone calls you and says, I want to sell my home, I got to be out in 30 days, or my wife's pregnant and we need to buy and we've got to be in this, in the next 2 months. That's a gift from the gods. In my world, now it's different in other worlds, but in my world, the gestation period of a lead can be weeks, months, years. And the ability, in marketing, they talk about a funnel. And sometimes you're lucky and someone's at the very bottom of the funnel and there's very little to do, even though what you do is critical. And sometimes they're not at that step. And the ability to be able to stay on top of them over time and say the right thing at the right time that motivates them to go into being at the bottom of the funnel. That's where the money is.
So you've been in the real estate game for several decades now. Where are most of those leads coming from for you? Are they now, the majority of them, referrals where your past clients are referring people? Are you still doing Zillow leads and paying for online leads?
I just wrote an offer yesterday. Never knew the guy before Sunday when he came to an open house of mine where one of my assistants was there. I never knew him before. And there's another guy I'm meeting tomorrow. I never knew him before. So my coach, Tom Ferry, says and I think he got it from somebody else, but he said there's two types of people, those you know and those you don't know. It might be a Zig Ziglar saying. He goes, and those you don't know is a much bigger list. So yeah, my referral base and sphere of influence is huge. The best lead source, better than that, is listings. If you have listings, you're going to get calls. Those two people I just mentioned, I met them because I had the goods, I had the product, and I met them. So
yeah, love it.
Now, more important, where they come from, like I always indicate in my CRM where the lead came from. And if I got the lead as a result of a listing I have, no matter how that came, because that could come from Zillow, Trulia, open house, call on the phone, lots of different things. But if they came from a result from have a listing, I credit the listing. I don't credit Zillow for getting a listing because I have a listing. Now, if I bought a zip code and I get our call and it had nothing to do with any of my product, that score goes up for Zillow or Realtor.
So talk about that gestation, I think you called it, of lead follow-up. Sometimes it's years. Is it more often years than not? And then I want you to kind of unpack a little bit more that follow-up process that you take.
Well, sometimes, the cool thing about having a mixture of ones that happen right away, and that's fantastic, and having one that has years, if you're in this business over a period of time, those ones that take a short period of time are often the pipeline. You create a pipeline and it starts just coming at you if you maintain it. So one very important thing is well, for every lead you have, 10 other people have that lead. I mean, I made up the number 10, but there's a lot of other people's following that. And that's why they're so easy to get, because, I mean, the millions and millions of leads are generated because buyers have access to all this, which was not the case 20 years ago. And they're talking to a lot of agents. So to get their attention and to become their agent, you need to start being of value. So the two things you can do, two things I talk about is connecting the dots and pushing their buttons. Now, connecting the dots is initially when you meet somebody and they tell you what they're looking for, is your ability to scan through maybe sellers you have off market. Maybe there's a connection there. If you do that, that's like getting two aces in black, you're playing 21, you get two aces and then you get two jacks. All kinds of sales are happening. Also, you have an opportunity to push a button and connect with your seller on a way that you look valuable. So they start working for each other. But then also connecting dots with pocket listings in the area. I don't know if pocket listings is a nationwide thing. Maybe you know better than I. But in the high end in Los Angeles, it's a large percentage of things are not listed in the MLS. So knowing that, so knowing your inventory, knowing other people's inventory, and knowing in the MLS inventory. That's how you end up. A lot of buyers today are saying, you know what, if you have any off-market listings, I'm interested. Other than that, I know the market. Those people end up with real estate agents. But they'll often end up with real estate agents when an agent ends up shining over whatever gestation period, and they say, hey, I got a pocket for you. Or even though they say they know everything, they still mention some things, and you might have told them something they didn't think of. When you all of a sudden do something for these people that they can't do for themselves, then you actually become valuable and you become the guy, like this guy.
There you go. What's going on, Gary?
How you doing?
Doing well.
All right, we've got Phil on. Welcome.
Thank you. Sorry, I was late. I was in a sales meeting.
Do you have a note?
Funny story about that. One of my former colleagues, like first job out of college, was a sales job, and he brought a doctor's note. And the first time he was late, and it was the sweetest thing I've ever heard. So it's one of my favorite jokes now.
So we're talking about, Phil. We're talking about lead follow up, being matchmakers, connecting the dots. I think is the phrase that Gary used to really kind of provide value. So go ahead and continue on, Gary.
Also, that's like the pushing buttons is the big picture. Connecting the dots is the best thing. What people really need from you, they don't need your friendship. They don't need to tell them where the great schools or the great ice cream are. That's secondary. They don't have to like you, respect you, know you, anything. If you tell a buyer about a property that they don't know about, and you could be in the business for 1 week and smell and be ugly and rude, and they're going to go look at the house with you, because that's really very valuable. I'm not suggesting being any of those things, but I'm just trying to make the point. Brand new agent who knows the market, who can connect these dots, is going to start making money right away. It's also a great way to impress a seller. A seller doesn't know you from Adam. If you say, I've got a buyer for your house and it's real and they believe it, you just all of a sudden get to the top of that heap. Pushing buttons is, in addition to doing that, you can provide valuable information. If interest rates, I'll give you 5 or 6 different examples. If interest rates go up to a buyer or seller, that's interesting information that could play a role on, do they buy now? Do they buy later? Is this a good time? Is this a bad time? Sales in an area. Everyone wants to know about, if you have a seller and you on a weekly basis are sending him not just any random stuff, or not just setting him up on like an auto thing from Zillow. They don't need you to do that. But if you're curating that and sending him an evaluation, this house a block away from your house just sold, I think your home is better or worse or equivalent, and this one sold, and you talk about trends, and you start actually providing some intelligent value to them, where they get to if you help them understand the market, they're going to love you and respect you. And so I like to do all this stuff before I'm even their client. I like to just kind of zen myself to, I become their client by default. And all those people go, all those other people who are after them go away.
So yeah, I think that's interesting. So I never sold a house. I purchased a few. And I think from a buyer side, to listen to you talk through, I can do Zillow. I'm actually really good at internet searching. That's what I do. I'm a prospector by trade. So I can search internet, Google search, figure out algorithms, things that I want to go look for, set of alerts on my own. So I'd love to hear more of that dynamic shift of where before Zillow existed, right, before my ability to go look for houses, and how that's really affecting real estate today. And maybe even more tactical level of like, what do you think the new buyers are anticipating or expecting out of a real estate agent? Because I have an opinion. I think Sean and I might have even talked about this openly on air before.
Okay.
But I'd like to hear from you. What's the new buyer expecting out of a real estate agent?
For the most part, there could be some really needy first-time people that like really want their hand held, and that's a really important thing where they go and interview an agent to work with them. But I rarely experience that. What I'm experiencing now is when people want to buy a house or sell a house, the first thing they do is they jump online and they start to learn the market. And while they're doing that, they stumble upon somebody with a product, or they email or connect with an agent. And when that agent can start engaging with this person and giving them information they don't know, that's when you all of a sudden develop a relationship and a rapport, and you're going to end up with a client. People do have all the information they need now. I don't think it's as good as the MLS. I think we still have an edge on that, but they do have a lot of information. And also they're really focused on I'm focused on all kinds of neighborhoods and price ranges. Someone looking for a $5 million home in Beverly Hills post office might even be more dialed in than I am on that. But where we come in value, because we've been doing it for years and this is our whole world, is we now can provide intelligence. We provide inside information. We tell them, like, the house that they love that's 5,000 feet is but it's on the wrong side of the street and it doesn't get sun, and they try to sell it 9 times and it's 4 stories, and the way it's set up is have tough resale. Or, you know what, I know you think that's expensive, but let me tell you about what it's got going for it. That's what we actually have to be good now. We don't just have to get our license. We need to really be qualified and talented and provide value. If we don't, I think those agents that can't do that are going to fall by the wayside.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, it's looking at the ones that can give me the details early. So it's a hot market. This house isn't gone on sale yet. So tell me when it's going on, how it's going on, like just from your relationships of being in the industry, people you're talking to, because you met Sean multiple times. Like now you've established, hey, I have a client coming on. I think it's perfect for your clients. Like just that mutual connection. I think that in a hot market where a house sells in a day and I want the perfect house, I need that person that can foresee the market better than I can, just from pure experience.
Right.
And then also, Sean and I had this conversation, like I was wowed by the fact that my real estate agent showed up in time and he was 15 minutes early to the meeting. Like that was a good thing for me. But for him to be able to say, hey, think about this when you're in the house, think about this, think about this, think about this, and put me in different scenarios, like really be the expert when you walk in. And it's for anybody that's in sales today, I think that's really a key point to make, which is be the consultant type, be the one that's the expert that's walking around, give them the ability to think about new things and put them in new scenarios, different places they might not be thinking about. And that's when you start winning, 1, by relationships, and 2, because you are the expert. So,
you know what, if they want that,
if
they want that, one thing I love when people go, they'll go, Chinese buyers like this, or they do that, or they behave this way. And it's like all 1.6 billion Chinese people act the exact same way. Me and my wife are like so similar in terms of our backgrounds, and we're so different. I just doubt that 1.6 billion people behave the same way. So, there's people that are total know-it-alls, and they want you walk in, and if you just listen to them and tell them, and they tell you everything on how they know it all, they love that. If you start trying to dictate to them and be that person, they don't like it. So there's a lot of people that like that. So you've got to find out where you can be of value for people. I don't give people things they don't want. And it's very annoying is just someone who just needs to talk. It's really annoying for a lot of people. So you got to read the tea leaves on people. There's a few different characteristics out there.
Yeah. So I want to make sure we touch on this because this is something that I've found really, really interesting, which is how you follow up with people, your consistency and persistency, but also your professionalism when you do get them on the phone. So talk a little bit about that. And you have this Gary Goldism that you call it when you do get them on the phone. You don't want to browbeat them or say, "Oh my gosh, I've been trying to get a hold of you for forever."
Yes, I have on more than one occasion reached out to someone a couple hundred times before I've gotten a listing. Now, I'm not like someone's not saying screw you, don't call me, and I'm calling them a couple hundred times. Sometimes people it's a gestation period. They're not ready, or a lot of people are, just hesitant to make commitments. And so a couple things. Number one, every time I call or reach out to somebody, I don't like have this backstory like I've been trying to reach you, or why aren't you calling me back, or any of that. I act as if I've never called them before. Because people are busy. That just because they didn't return your call doesn't mean they're not interested in talking to you. Just think of yourself. I always like to say this. If you wanted to buy a car and you went into a car dealership and you thought you wanted to buy a car and then something came up and it was a few months away, if the guy was like hassling you and he was calling you, you'd probably completely blow him off. But if someone was courteous and had a really good pacing on it and just was being top of mind but not being a nuisance, 3 months later when he made that call, you'd probably be really happy to hear from him. So one thing I do is there's so many different ways people like to communicate, and I don't believe millennials communicate one way and baby boomers communicate another way. But besides just their favorite communication, there's also patterns. There's some people where that initial contact might need to be in person, and then all they want to do is text. There's some people that want to text, but then when you get heavier on things more meaningful, they want to have phone calls. And then, when you get into paperwork, they might want to all be email. So and if I can't reach somebody, I might switch from phone calls to emails. I might switch from emails to text. I might mix it up. And I also change the message. Often someone's not calling you back because you don't say anything that's compelling. You've got to, and that's where I get to, where you're like trying to push the buttons. You're trying to say that right thing at the right time, or someone says yes. I remember so many occasions just calling people over and over and over, and I finally turned something a little bit around, and they went, "Oh, interesting. Yeah, let's go take a look at that." And we made a sale. Where 50 times I've said other things and it didn't quite work.
Yeah, I think that there's an absolute key call out, and it's one of my pet peeves for the SDRs that I've worked with, or sales development reps that I've worked with in the past, is when you're reaching out to somebody as a buyer, they actually might be busy.
Right.
And it's not them trying to be rude and not responding to you, but when you send them the email, that's the breakup email that's kind of got this weird, rude tone to it, you might offend them because it's the first time they've actually seen your message and they actually don't know what you do.
Right.
So
are we dating or something?
Why are we talking? Why are you emailing me? Why do you so give them the reason that you're actually reaching out. And that's a very, very key call out. I want to make sure people slow down and hear it, because that is relevant to all sales and it's not just real estate.
All this,
make sure when you're reaching out, it's always there. Yeah, I think it's a great
point I want to make is I never, ever, ever call up somebody. Let's just say rarely. I have done it once in a blue moon. I don't call someone saying, "Hey, I'm just following up. I'm just checking in." That's code for I've got nothing to say, but I want to see if there maybe is an opportunity where you want to buy a house and I can make a commission. I call with something.
Right.
I call with something that could instigate a conversation or provide some value or gets them thinking. That is our job, to compel somebody to do something that they're intending to do.
Yeah, one of our past guests, John Barrows, always puts it as, if you can't finish the sentence, the reason for my call is, You have no business actually making the physical phone call. Like, you have to add value to that conversation when you're sending an email or a text message or a call or whatever. As you start to recognize patterns, how you want to communicate, and then even to your point, how do you interrupt some of those patterns? You have to know why you're adding value and how you're adding value. So I think that's great.
I kind of think it's like you just end up hitting on something that resonates with them, and then they're ready to go. You're not. I highly doubt you're going to sell somebody something that it's not like in the soup that it's going to happen. But that right agent at the right time that says the right thing, that goes, okay, that's how you get the sale. And there's like all these people chasing to do that. Another point on that is the harder people are to reach, the more difficult they seem to be to kind of nail down. Those are some of the best clients there is, because everyone else ends up going away. And 6 months later, you're the only one still calling, and they actually appreciate it.
Yeah.
And you end up, getting a deal. I had one guy like that. I ended up literally, I chased him for years, and he seemed like the worst and indecisive. I ended up selling him 8 properties. All of a sudden he kicked into, I want to do this gear. He went from, he was very neurotic, and he finally figured out how to do buying, and then he became obsessed with it, and we did 8 deals.
Crazy. I love the patience and the persistence that's involved in your process, and I think that there's so much that our listeners can learn about that, because whether you're selling a $30 a month product or a 6 or 7 figure deal, you're dealing with humans, and humans can be very busy, especially like what you're saying. The busier they are, likely the more valuable that opportunity is for you. So the patience,
and more successful, more money they have. So
absolutely, yeah, that's the first thing that comes to my mind as well. So before we wrap up here, I want you to just kind of talk maybe about the first example that comes to your mind about someone that you patiently and persistently followed up with someone with value, connecting the dots, and pushing buttons, like you said earlier. What were some of those things that you gave them as you followed up with purpose?
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to mention, I wouldn't look at it as patience and persistence. I mean, the fact that I breathe on a very regular basis is not my persistence. This is our job. If you're not doing that, you're not in the game. It's not a great strategy to whatever falls on your lap. You're just not going to make much money that way. So it's not patience. It's not persistence. It is the protocol for making money in real estate. There's millions of agents, so you need that. The guy I called 200 times. I met him initially, and he was a developer, and he was building a house, and it was the first house he ever did. And I was trying to nail him down to get the listing. And what I did with him is I continually talked about the market with him. And I continually said, let me come over and walk through these things with you. I can give you some insight of what you should do here, what you should do there. I really made it to him. I go, any questions you have, you build a home, you've got literally hundreds of decisions. I go, call me. I will tell you what the buyers want, what's to be expected. I'm a really good perspective of, your architect doesn't know what buyers want like I do. So let me be that. And so I did that. I followed up on the market every time something sold. I kept on pushing him some things I was doing. And but it was actually comical how many times I had to call him, because he was just this doctor, and he was all over the place and really evasive. And I made fun of it. I said, listen, Fortino, I am going to hunt you down like a dog till you sign this paper. So don't think you're getting away with this. So I didn't make it heavy. I made it fun. I go, you can run, you can hide. You're signing the paper. It's going to happen. It can be easy or it can be difficult, but it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's interesting because it sounds like you gave him value for free. I mean, you were willing to give it up there just to know that there's a long-term vision to what you're working. So. Well,
that's the job. That is our job, to give people value for free. I know some people feel a little ripped off if they get used, and they're like, this is going on for, ever. And I mean, I have a friend who's a really top broker, and he got sick of like telling someone how to redo their whole house and they list with somebody else. But with that, you can't drop the ball. You got to stay on. Not only do you have to create these relationships, and everyone's a little different, but you need to stay on top of them, or someone else can circumvent you and become that go-to person. I always say you want to be the person in play with somebody, that person where you're having this ongoing conversation about real estate, where they may pick up the phone if they're in the middle of a lunch or they're on the treadmill to just say, let me call you back.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I want to go ahead and wrap up here because we've gone a little bit over, but it's been just such good information. I've been hesitant to cut it off, but let's go ahead and transition into the rapid fire, where we ask all of our guests 3 questions that give our listeners better insight into how they're sorry, I got a text, so I'm being distracted as well. To give our listeners insight into the minds of our guests and top producers and successful people. So
make a multiple choice.
What's that?
Make a multiple choice.
Yeah, right. So if you're listening to this on the audio, we're going to make this rapid fire exclusive to our YouTube channel. So go and check out the YouTube channel. You can search Real Sales Talk. So first question for you, Gary, is who would you say inspires you to be great and do what you do on a regular basis?
Who inspires me?
Who inspires you?
I mean, my family. I have young kids. I've got a big responsibility. That's I really want to taking care of my family and being successful. I also really want to be, sounds obnoxious, really want to do great things. I really like to be great, not obnoxious great. I just want to really excel in things and go, wow, that was big. That's big to me.
Yeah. I think your family's a great thing to motivate you. What routines do you have, if any? Could be in the morning when you wake up, could be in the evening when you go to bed. What routines do you have that you do on a regular or semi-regular basis?
Every night before I go to bed, I'm usually pondering something. Like I sit there and I think about something I want to work out or something I want to do, or I ponder, and I usually fall asleep really quick. But I believe right before you go to bed and right when you wake up, you're in this really kind of dreamy state where you're like a sponge. And when I wake up in the morning, I'll lie in bed for 5 or 10 minutes and talk about what I want to accomplish that day. And it's really stream of consciousness. And it's like, it's not, but I think, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a psychologist, but I have this feeling when you're in that mode and you're doing that thing, it could be really powerful. And I do that on a, very regular basis, daily.
Awesome. So besides the Playboy Mansion Hugh Hefner deal you did, what would you say is one of your most memorable deals with one of your clients?
The year before, I sold a home for $20 million that I sold him the lot for $1.8 million. A few years prior, I gave him the idea of what to build. He hired a great architect and they took it to town. They really did an unbelievable job that wasn't my doing, but I told him the concept I had. And then I remember in a very short period of time, we marketed it perfectly. I showed it to 42 people, got 3 offers and sold it for top dollar. And it was in a very difficult area to sell a home. So we just kind of, set a record, but I thought it was done really, really well. And it was funny. The client wasn't even, at the end of the day, he appreciated it, but he was going to fire me. His expectations were something even different. But I remember I showed it 42 times in the last 60 days. And, most of the people have been on the cover of People magazine. And, but you know what? All he cared about is me getting it sold. And I sold it he made $10 million.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Well, Gary, thank you so much for being on. There are so many awesome takeaways from this conversation. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule.
You know what? If you dig what I'm saying and doing, I have a YouTube channel called Voodoo Agent, and they're these little 3 to 5 minute best practices, and I do one every week. And if you like what I'm saying here, it's more of that.
Absolutely.
I appreciate if you guys check that out.
You should go check it out. And then also, I think you're relatively active online. So if someone wants to connect with you on social media, how do they find you?
Well, Voodoo Agent's one thing. I have a Facebook page. What am I? Gary Gold Luxury Real Estate is, Gary Gold personally on Facebook. I don't really bother with. I'm on Twitter, but I don't, and Instagram. But I personally have nothing to do with it. I just haven't done that. That's about it.
Awesome. Cool. Well, go check out Gary Gold. Go check out his YouTube channel as well. Sounds like some great content. In fact, I'm going to go subscribe to it after we finish this conversation. So, Gary, thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it. And
Thank you.
Real Sales Talk family, we will see you on the next episode.
Take care.